Welcome back to the Hogsty, ladies and gentlemen, your number one source for all things Redskins. Stay with us today as we take you through the draft results and give you our takes on all of Washington's selections. Spoiler alert, the team went defense early and often, thank God. All that, plus the insider scoop on the draft day party over at FedEx Field. That's right, we were invited. This ain't your grandma's Hogsty. We'll be right back with you after the break. We'll see you then.
Welcome to the Hogsty with your crew, Adam Taraski, Alex Zeese, Sean Conti, and Steve Thomas. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
And we're back. So happy to be with you guys today. Sean Conti here. How are you guys doing, Mr. Alex Zeese?
I'm exhausted, man. I feel like I've put in a week's worth of work on the draft, and I didn't do crap for my actual job. By the way, what does my grandmother's Hogsty look like? That's what I want to know.
Oh, God. I think there were 19 of us, and we all talked at once, and we had shitty mics, and it was somebody. It wasn't a pretty view.
At least half of that's been fixed.
Yeah. We've come a long way on half of those things. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing all right, and you've actually insulted my grandmother because my grandmother had a Hogsty, and so I don't know what you're trying to say about her.
Holy shit!
No, I'm just kidding.
That intro was a lot more offensive than I meant for it to be. Good.
No, she didn't actually have a Hogsty. Yeah, I'm just kidding. But I'm okay, and I'm exhausted too. Actually, it's live tweeting 13 hours of draft coverage, or Alex did the first night, and I did the rest of it, and. Yeah. It was a lot. Let's just say that.
It's exhausting.
And then writing all the stories and everything that we did for it. I was exhausted and I did nothing but sit on my couch.
Right, and you actually had the harder job, I think, doing the second and third days more. Because by the time we get to the seventh round, it's like who?
Well, let's put it this way.
Who?
Mike Mayock
exactly.
and company on NFL Network we're breaking down the physical characteristics of an orangutan. And so that gives.
I saw that.
and Mayock got a little bit offended by it. Actually, it's like, what the heck are we doing here, people? It was actually pretty funny if you saw it because they said, 4.5 feet tall, thick in the legs. It was actually a pretty funny bit.
Yeah, I saw that. That was at some random zoo where they were having. Have we jumped the shark a little bit with the draft when we're having orangutans and astronauts both picking the draft picks on the third day?
That. If you are interested in that topic, listen to the next episode of It's Just Business. The Hogsty presents It's Just Business because we talked about that very thing for 15 minutes. So,
give us the one sentence moral
scoop
of that story.
One sentence moral of the story is that while it may seem like the NFL is trying to bring in people who are not hardcore football fans to make them watch on a Saturday afternoon. And so for that reason, they're going a little bit overboard. There's the executive summary.
Yeah,
that's your summary.
Makes sense.
My summary is that it needs to go back to being 2 days. That I really am firmly on that bandwagon these days. I liked it better when it was a shorter draft, when it was a little earlier in the year. But I
don't think they need to turn it quite so Hollywood. Why does there need to be a red carpet? It's like you guys are turning these players into like movie stars or something. It's crazy.
I do like moving it from city to city, though. That's a cool change.
I freaking hated having it in Philadelphia.
You
Good God, no more Philadelphia. Am I sick and tired of? If I hear that song one more time, I'm gonna scratch my eyes out.
Well, that's a Philadelphia thing. That's not the concept of Chicago.
I've always found it sadly ironic that the city of Philadelphia refers to itself as a city of brotherly love, whereas they have some of the rudest, most classless fans in the entire country. It's just a dichotomy that's I find ironic.
Yeah, I think it's ironic for a reason. But good cheesesteaks.
Good cheesesteaks.
It's purposely ironic.
Yeah, good cheesesteaks.
All right, well, before we actually start taking folks at home through these draft picks, Steve, we had some some draft-related poll questions this week, right?
We did.
Well, let's do that first. Yes,
and we
gauge everyone's opinion here.
Yeah, and we can thank our colleague Jamal for this. We were trying to come up with a question, this week for the poll, and he was like, "Just keep it simple." So the question what is your excitement level about draft day. And this is born out of the idea that not everybody out there are football nerds like we are. Not everybody is going to, want to see 13 hours of tweeting about the draft. So what do you think about it?
By the way, there are football nerds who don't get excited about the draft. I mean...
Yeah. Exactly right. That's true. So
very true.
The 4 categories were, I love it, it's better than Christmas, I will probably watch, I might watch it, or it's not a big deal for me. And so, as we always do, I'd like to solicit you guys' opinions on what you think the fans think and where you would fall on it. So, Sean, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I am going to guess that. Give me the middle. Give me option B again.
Option B was I will probably watch.
Yeah, I'll probably watch. I'm going to say that with the options we gave people would say they're probably going to watch. I doubt anyone – well, God, I know I'm going to be wrong on this, but I doubt that many people were super, super excited about it, but I'm prepared to be completely wrong about that. So
there you go. Alex, what do you think?
I'm going to say that people were super excited just knowing our fans are probably the most hardcore football fans.
Yeah, Alex is going to be right. He's right.
Like, I think if you were to do that poll through some reputable polling thing and, it wasn't us doing it through Twitter, but through, Reuters or some AP kind of poll, it would be a little different. But
and you'd have to have a what's the draft, option in there, too.
Right. Well, and a double blind and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think with our fans, it's a 1 seed. They're super excited. At the same time,
you're probably right.
I'm actually more in that B camp traditionally. Like, I care about the first couple rounds. After that, I don't know who most of these guys are that are getting drafted. So, I
seriously,
my excitement goes from 10 to an 8 in the second and third round, and then down to a 1 for day 3.
Okay.
Where I have it in the background while I'm playing video games and I'm just watching the numbers go by traditionally.
Okay. Well, in this case, Sean, surprisingly, you ready? You would be wrong.
Oh.
Okay. No, I knew you were fucking with me on that, you asshole.
By a vote of 61%, the people who responded to our poll loved it better than Christmas.
Sure.
The second category was the B answer. I will probably watch. That was 24%. 11% said it was not a big deal
That's
for me.
not so bad.
Yeah, it was only 11%. And then a small 4% said I might watch it. Personally, for me, I'm in the 61%. I've always been a huge draft fan. Even when I was a kid, I watched as much of it as I can. I loved watching the 6th-round draft picks. So that's where I would fall. And I think you're right, Alex. I think if you're responding to our poll and listening to our stuff, you're a hardcore football fan, and that's probably why the numbers are skewed so high. I think you're exactly right.
Sure.
I think my personal excitement about the draft has dropped over the years, just watching the various whiffs and botches, but also it just seems like every year it gets further and further away from what I am expecting the team to do. I'm not saying they made bad picks in this draft at all. We'll get to that in a second, certainly, but it seems to always go completely differently than anything that my mock draft says,
Sure.
My mock drafts get further and further away from reality, which happened again this time. So
Well, I mean, I'm with you there. I probably did 50 mock drafts, and I'll put it this way. I don't think I ever picked who we got at number 1, mostly because he was usually gone in the first 3 picks in every mock draft simulator you do.
That's right.
Let's also just be clear, Alex. I mean, you're not just doing these mock drafts. You actually have an Excel spreadsheet where you're charting them, correct?
Oh, yeah. You don't want to get into how nerdy I am, where I have...
I just wanted to bring it up.
Big board in a spreadsheet format, just... here's my number 1, here's my top 10 guys, all that kind of stuff.
Who was your number 1 on your big board, on the Alex big board?
He actually, we picked my number 1, but I didn't think we'd get him because I thought he'd be gone.
And Allen was number 1 on your board.
Yeah, well, he's the best defensive lineman, which is our biggest needed position, and yeah.
You want to just get into the Jonathan Allen pick?
I think we should.
Yeah, let's do it. So, number 17 there, Jonathan Allen. One of 2 Alabama boys.
Yeah, let's just get into some details and we can give our opinion on him. Jonathan Allen, 6'3", weighs 286 pounds. If you've been living under a rock, you don't know that he is, in fact, from Leesburg, Virginia. Went to high school of 5 miles, Stonebridge High School in Ashburn, which is 5 miles from Redskins Park. He's a childhood Redskins fan.
Right.
In terms of his career with Crimson Tide.
One thing before you go too far. One thing I learned when I was at the press conference yesterday, he is actually born in Alabama but moved to Virginia.
Ah, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Didn't realize that. 152 tackles in 4 years, 28.5 sacks, 50 games. He won basically every award there is last year. He was objectively the best defensive player in the NCAA. He was a first-team All-American. He won the Bronco Nagurski Award. He won the Bednarik Award, and he won the Lombardi Award. The Nagurski and Bednarik Awards are both given to the best defensive player, and the Lombardi Award is the best collegiate linebacker or lineman.
Right.
On top of that, he was a team captain at Alabama, and as much as I typically hate the Crimson Tide, I had to give their defense credit last year because they were, in fact, great. So he was the leader of a great defense that won every award last year.
Look at how many defensive and just players overall Alabama had drafted in the first couple rounds.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like 9 or something.
Yeah,
I think it was 9.
You basically had their entire starting defense drafted in this draft.
I think
everyone was a senior at least.
Yeah, I think Jonathan Allen was. You said it before, Alex. I think it was the perfect pick. It was my number one on the wish list. Jonathan Allen, and somehow he fell to us just by a gift from God. Or whatever God you choose to believe in out there.
Right.
I think we desperately needed a star on the interior defensive line. He at Alabama he played inside over the nose. He played on the he played over the tackle. He played over the guard. They moved him all over the place. So he's going to be a very versatile guy. For us. He's a smart guy. He's hardworking. I think he's exactly what this team needed. That home run A+ pick for me. The only downside to him is he's got questions about his shoulders.
Right.
And he said that his shoulders haven't bothered him for a year. Just because I want to be positive, I'll take him for his word.
Yeah. I mean, supposedly Dr. Andrews checked it out, who's our team's doctor and also one of the better surgeons in the country. And he said it looks good. Now, take that for what it's worth, because Dr. Andrews is also the guy who said RG3 will be fine and be healthy all the time.
I was just thinking that. Yeah. He was the guy who led RG3 back into the Seattle game in 2012.
Yeah, so he might be a little bit out of favor with a lot of fans. But, yeah, like I said, when I did a big board, and listen, I'm not an expert. Most of the way I do this is I look at about 20 different mock rankings, and then I average out who's going to be number one, who's, like the top 150 picks. And then I change it up based off of what we needed. He was my number one guy. More than Garrett, more than a lot of these other stud players who were supposed to be top 5 players. He fills a big need for us. We haven't had a good defensive lineman in a long time. And I'm sorry, Chris Baker was above average. He wasn't. His ceiling is nowhere near as what Allen's could be.
Yeah, I totally agree.
For us. So I'm thrilled by this pick. The fact that he's from Leesburg and a local boy and grew up a Redskins fan watching. This was funny. He was like, back when I was a kid watching Donovan McNabb and learning from Chris Cooley, I'm like, Jesus, this makes me feel old.
Makes you feel old, yeah, I know.
When he's talking about going to watch McNabb in training camp as a child. And, I'm like, I'm that's my Mark Rippon.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, it's just an added benefit. I had no idea he was from Virginia until the day of the draft. That really wasn't the point with me.
Oh, no.
It's nice, but who really cares, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the important thing is, like you guys said, big-bodied run stuffer that can rush the passer as well. That's huge.
Right.
I mean, we published that column 2 weeks ago, about, the Redskins draft picks since '92, and, in the Dan Snyder era, and, we had drafted two defensive linemen in the Dan Snyder era that were in rounds 1, 2, or 3, and not one of them was in the first round. We had only drafted 4 since 1992 that were in the top 3 rounds, and again, none of them were first rounders. Bobby Wilson was, so the other 3 weren't. So Bobby Wilson was 91, but anyway, I was very surprised, that Jay Gruden, Bruce Allen didn't get suckered into, some wide receiver, running back, blah blah blah. I'm glad they didn't, though.
Yeah. No, I would completely agree with that. I would just say before we move on to the next pick, too, for context for people, Hassan Reddick went just, I think, 3 picks earlier than that. So he wasn't too far off from us. Definitely a surprise that Allen fell to us. But yeah, Reddick went a little bit before that. Other guys that we were linked to, like, pipe dreams of Christian McCaffrey that some people had, he went 8th overall.
Right.
So yeah, no, I think everyone is pretty much, this pick has been met relatively with universal acclaim. I don't think you see anything different until like the 4th round or so. That's where the sketchy
now
stuff
we did a
starts
poll on this too. I'm not going to ask you guys to guess the results or anything, but the poll was, what do you think of the Allen pick? And 92% of the people that voted, and we got pretty good participation on this one. 92% of the people that voted said it was an outstanding pick.
Sure.
6% said it was good, not great, and carried some risk. And then 2% of you out there, which I don't know what you're thinking, said it was a mistake.
This is why people got to lay off the meth before voting on Twitter polls. Fun little random fact. When Jonathan Allen was 2 years old is roughly when we drafted the last offensive or defensive lineman, who we also picked at 117, and that was Kennard Lang, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully
that
he will.
That really is kind of random serendipity.
Hopefully he will
That's
be
hilarious.
a longer-term prospect for the Redskins, and Kennard Lang ended up being,
Yeah.
I would, if any of you out there are listening to this who actually voted, were in the 2%, we would love to hear from you. I really would. We won't laugh at you. We promise. We might laugh at
no
you.
comments came with those votes?
No comments whatsoever.
No
No
one made a negative aspersion.
Was that just like a Cowboy fan who our poll got, landed on your Twitter timeline or what? I really want to know why you guys out there thought it was a terrible pick, because I don't get it. I think you're crazy.
They sneezed when they were clicking is what happened.
Maybe
they sneezed.
Dyslexia, Steve. Dyslexia affects us all.
I guess so. Has to be it. Has to be that.
We're all victims of dyslexia.
Yeah.
I like that. Anything else you guys want to say about Allen before we go to the next guy?
I'd say let's go to the next guy.
Yeah.
Well, it's an easy guy to go to, right? Because they're teammates.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes,
so
they are.
Ryan Anderson, outside linebacker, another Bama boy. What'd you guys think of this guy?
Another great pick.
Mm-hmm.
He is he's another guy who was a leader of the Alabama defense. He clearly knows Jonathan Allen and is friends with him.
Yep.
He was also a 4-year career, 44 games. He's not hugely athletic. By the way, 128 tackles, 39.5 sacks, 1 interception. He ran a 4.78 40 at the combine. This is not Julius Peppers, people, in terms of like athletic ability. It's not Brian Orakpo, something like that. This guy is really more on the Ryan Kerrigan mold. Only, some would argue better. Kerrigan was a first rounder and is producing in the NFL, so who knows Ryan? What Ryan Anderson's going to do? But he has a very high ceiling, I think, in terms of being a quote football player. He's a Scott McGlynn football player guy.
Yeah, he's a grinder, is what he is.
Yeah.
Here's what I kind of take away from it. I love that these guys both went to Alabama together. They're both going to be more than capable players. We'll get into this a lot from the press conference. We have a few quotes of them about playing together, and the fact that they're going to continue to play together. But I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to watch for fans early on, that these guys have a rapport knowing how to play with each other.
I think that's huge. I agree.
Yeah,
I think that's
people
great.
underestimate how long it takes for defensive players to gel on the field. I remember watching some college football of my school, Temple, and how Matt Ioannidis used to work with his linebackers, where he would know, okay, this guy in this kind of position, he's going to go on the inside versus the outside, and how he would play off that almost telepathically. These guys are going to have that connection, I think, early on, and that's going to be huge. Is Anderson an elite physical prospect? No. But I think he can be a good dirty work outside linebacker, similar to what we want to see out of guys like Preston Smith and Murphy. But, I think he'll definitely bring that kind of aspect. And by the way, how deep are we at outside linebacker now?
Yeah, see, that's the problem with it. I like Ryan Anderson as a pick. One could argue it wasn't really a need pick, because we are very deep at it. What I wondered about Anderson immediately, he's 6'2", a little over 250 pounds.
Right.
I wondered if he wasn't going to be moved inside, at least at least for some, are they going to try him, at there? Would they move him occasionally just to mix things up? Because he's big enough, I think, to play inside, a little bit.
Right.
So I thought about that and wondered that. I think
inside with the speeds that we're talking about in terms of his 40 time, he's probably, I don't know if he could go side to side on the, run stopping. I just don't know.
Yeah, maybe not.
I know he was asked about it, and he said he hasn't even been approached about that kind of stuff yet, so who knows.
I think this, though, I think that one of Preston Smith and Trent Murphy needs to be nervous. Because I don't think long-term, they're going to bring Ryan Anderson in as a second-round draft pick and then keep Trent Murphy and Preston Smith and a couple of the young guys.
What about Junior Galette? Galette's on a one-year prove-it deal again.
Junior Galette is different, though, because Junior Galette is a speed guy. Junior Galette has elite speed.
He's also been hurt for 2 years straight.
Right.
He could be a speed guy without any speed left. We don't know.
He could. But if he comes back to even, approaching what he was, I think there's your left, your right side over the left tackle speed rusher, maybe Junior Galette. And then the question, if that is the case and he becomes that, then the open question is between, Kerrigan, who's on a big deal and is a multiple-time Pro Bowler, Anderson, Murphy, and Preston Smith. One of those guys has probably got to go.
Maybe.
One of them.
There is a mentality among certain circles where you can never have too many good outside rushers.
Which I never subscribe to that because, if you can have too many because eventually you're going to have to get rid of them.
Oh,
and you may have to get rid of
agree,
good players.
Personally. I think,
I think it's dumb to say that.
Rotating those guys out constantly, I understand. Like, you're always planning who's the next guy up, but... that's kind of where they're going, I think.
I do think that there's going to be some symmetry between... Sorry, Sean, I cut you off. I do think there's going to be some symmetry between Allen and Anderson that, immediately right off the bat because they know each other so well.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that. And I think that, and I hear what you're saying about the outside linebacker thing. I think it probably came down to who was the best, who was closest to a position of need and the best player left. Because at that point, other names that we've been linked to, like Malik McDowell, obviously went off at the top of the second. I know. Here's a question for you: if Dalvin Cook had fell down there to our pick, would you have taken Cook, the running back, over an outside linebacker?
I don't know if I'd take Cook. I don't necessarily love Cook as much as I loved McCaffrey. Yeah, that's just me personally. I don't know about the coaches.
Well, McCaffrey went 8th. Yeah.
Seriously. For me, I think the Redskins did the smart thing and stay away from some of these character guys at the top of the draft.
Yeah.
I don't think the Redskins are the type of organization where you need to bring guys like that in. And I don't even really mean from a locker room perspective, because we may have leaders in the locker room that could keep him in line, although we lost a bunch of veterans on the offense.
Sure.
And Trenton Williams is proven to be a drug head himself, so I'm not sure we have the locker room presence for that. Like if Pierre Garçon was still there, he'd be a guy that could have kept road hurt on him, but I'm not sure we have that anymore. But also from a front office perspective, somebody out there name me a time when the Redskins have taken a critical situation and made it better. The Redskins are a team that pours gasoline on the fire, and intentionally. Even when they're trying not to. So I don't think you bring a Dalvin Cook in or a Joe Mixon. A lot of you guys out there wanted Joe Mixon. We're just like crying over Joe Mixon. Well, the Redskins aren't the type of team that needs the press, of drafting a guy who beat
we get plenty of bad press on our own. We don't need more.
We have plenty of self-generated bad press. We don't need to justify the selection of Joe Mixon or Dalvin Cook, just because he's a good player. So I'm glad they stayed away from him. And for that reason, I would have not drafted Cook. From a football perspective, now, I'm higher on Rob Kelly than others. I think, we could probably stay away from running back and been okay. I think Kelly has talent and is going to get better.
I think Kelly can be serviceable. I don't know what his ceiling is. I don't think he has a ceiling of a Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
McCaffrey's
a different story, but Dalvin Cook, I don't know. I wouldn't have taken him.
No, and I kind of agree with. Look, you watch highlight film and he was quick. He had something that we don't have, but it's also it's not something you necessarily need to win football games anymore.
I mean, we just I just think of the PR of we're going to have
and I'm with you
the
there.
Redskins spokesman up there trying to justify bringing in a guy who knocked a woman out in the middle of a deli. I mean, it's just we don't need that.
Right.
Or in Cook's place, he was arrested 3 times and all the rest of it. I mean, that's just bad. You need to be on the Patriots or something. Is anybody surprised that the Raiders and the Bengals drafted the problem child? The Raiders drafted Garrett
and the Browns late with Brantley. Let's
with Brantley, and then the Bengals. I mean, none of that surprises me.
By the way,
those are the teams.
Yeah,
that is a huge. I don't want to get into it too much, but the Raiders took a huge risk there.
Raiders are fools.
I mean,
classic Raiders move.
Yeah.
Well, from a legal perspective, I mean, he might get charged. People. I was honestly disappointed in the fan base out there a little bit. Who just seemed to want to. Just give Conley a free pass because he said he's innocent. We don't know what happened, people.
Right.
We really don't. I mean, he hasn't even been interviewed by the police. The rape kit hasn't come back yet. There's been no decision on whether he's going to be charged or not. And I think it's unfair. This is my soapbox, and I promise I'll shut up. I think it is very unfair to a rape victim or an alleged rape victim to just automatically take the side of the defendant. I think that's just a terrible thing, and I think the Raiders ought to be ashamed of themselves for what they did for drafting him.
I agree with you, and we won't get into it much.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah,
I agree completely. Yeah, no, I'm with you. All right. Well, the only other people that I could say, I know Joe Mixon, like you mentioned, Steve, he went 1 pick before us. The only other people that I think you could have potentially taken would be Dalvin Tomlinson. Right, and they got another Alabama boy. I didn't realize these people all went to Alabama. Holy shit! Other than that, I think they made the right choice here in Anderson there in the second round.
I mean, you could have argued
everybody
for the
else
nose
kind of
tackle.
came off.
You could have argued for the nose tackle.
Yeah, that's true.
The
there were a couple good safeties out
true.
there you might have wanted to look at who would probably be week 1 starting safeties, but with us getting Swearinger, and I think they're really high on Cravens moving to Strong. I can understand them not seeing safety as the high need that some of us fans see it as, but still.
Allow me to present the devil's advocate to these Alabama guys.
Sure.
Because I think it's only fair.
Please do.
Alabama, as one of you two mentioned, I think it was Alex, 9 people were drafted from the Alabama in the first couple rounds. The bulk of those were defense. Wow. It was O.J. Howard and most of their defense.
I mean, that's what Nick Saban's famous for.
Yeah. Now, when you have that much talent around you, are we really sure that Jonathan Allen and Ryan Anderson are that good, or are they just the beneficiaries of having a bunch of elite talent around them and beating up on people on, let's be honest, a soft SEC this year? And we're going to find out. Kind of when the season starts. But that's the devil's advocate position, and sort of the open question is what kind of elite talents are they really given who they played for? So that's kind of the Ryan Anderson.
It is a fair question. What I will say, and some of this comes back to some of the stuff that was talked about in the press conference. When you go and play for Alabama, the thing that I think gives them such a good edge, it's not like they run some crazy scheme. They run a basic NFL 4-3 or sometimes 3-4 scheme, depending on their players. What gives them an edge is that they basically train like professionals. They work like professionals, and that's what both these guys said they were, taught at Alabama, is how to be, act like a professional even at the college level.
I like the fact that these guys are seniors.
Yes.
I like drafting more experienced players. I hated the Mitchell Trubisky pick. This is all 32 territory, but I hated the Mitchell Trubisky pick or trade up. Because the guys played one season.
The quarterback class is pretty shit.
All that other stuff. But I like the idea that these guys played 4 years. At a top program. I think it bodes well for them. And just to be clear, I do think in Allen in particular was an elite talent.
Right.
I'm just giving you guys the other side of the story.
That's a fair point to make.
I'll say this. I think that, they might not hit their ceiling, but there's a very high floor on a lot of these Alabama guys.
I just think Allen in particular can't possibly bust. I just don't think he's going to bust out.
Yeah, I don't think any. I don't think any of them will bust out. I think the worst thing is they'll all prove to be at least above average NFL guys.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I'm hoping that what we really need is a disruptive force in the interior defensive line. Mm-hmm. We need Allen to be the type of guy
I get that vibe off Allen right away. You watch some of that highlight stuff, him doing the Superman tackle of the quarterback at Texas, and
where he took a flying leap at the quarterback.
Yeah.
You know?
And I don't think now that wasn't Manholmes, right? That was the backup quarterback. I think he does that too, but still.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. He jumped over a guy and went vertical.
I mean, we really need a disruptive force. We need a star who's going to be able to penetrate, who's going to be able to beat those tackles and beat those guards, and we don't have that now.
And let's be honest, we've never really had that as the Redskins. Like, I guess you could go back to Manley and
well, Manley was an edge player, but the guy who was supposed to be that was Albert Hainsworth,
right?
You know, and we all know how that turned out. And Hainsworth was great in spots. It was just,
he
most of the time
kind
he was
of one good season for us.
Yeah, and most of the time he was laying on the ground relaxing instead of playing.
Same with Stubblefield, if you want to go back that far, even.
Yeah.
Supposed to do it, didn't do it.
Right.
Anyway.
We've had great edge guys. We haven't had great interior guys in a generation. You know.
No. More than the generation, maybe.
Yeah, more than. He may be a first. I mean, I guess Dave Butts would be the last great interior defensive lineman we had.
Dave Butts.
Yeah, Dave Butts.
By the way, Sean, do we need to get you a Broncos Jake Butt jersey? Not to go totally off the rails.
Did you guys see that?
Short
Jake
answer,
Butts,
yes.
Did you guys see that Jake Butt's father had a jersey that said headbutt?
Nah.
Did you see he actually did sign a deal with Charmin?
No, I hadn't seen that.
There's like a big picture of him with like a pile of toilet paper. It's great.
Draft.
Jesus Christ, guys.
Draft.
Yeah. We're going
Our younger viewers are tuning us out now. Okay, so let's keep it frickin' moving here. So round 3, 81, Fabian Moreau, cornerback, UCLA. What is the take on this guy, guys? Wasn't as sold on him myself as the first two.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, what is it about the Redskins? They love finding injured potential round 1 cornerbacks in the 3rd round and taking them.
Yeah, what could go wrong, right?
Right. We haven't seen this before last year.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. This was not I wasn't very high on this pick. Although the other guys that we've been previously linked to, again, I think it was a matter of, everybody else that we kind of could have really used went off the board before us. Like guys like Wormley and, other names that we've heard on the show.
That's where this pick kind of annoys me. There were probably 5 or 6 guys on the board I would have been thrilled to see, and we went with injured corner, which I know some people say corner is a big need for us. I just still don't view it as,
I don't get it either.
Can address in the 3rd round.
Not above others.
But after doing my my draft poll analysis a couple weeks ago for the column on the website,
sure,
I really realized how much, for some reason, the Redskins love to draft defensive backs. They just love doing it.
Yeah,
they draft more defensive backs than anybody by far, and it's not even close. And so, from that respect, I wasn't surprised at Moreau. Like you guys, I was a little disappointed that we went corner. Excuse me, Moreau as a player is interesting though. Forget the injury for a minute. I mean, he's got good size. He's 6 foot, 205 pounds, and he ran a 4.35 40, so he's got a lot of speed. He ran a 38-inch vertical, 136-inch broad jump. This guy is an elite athlete prospect. He played at a big-time school in the Pac-10, which had a bunch of aired-out offenses.
Right.
So I think from that respect, he has potential. My question is, what the heck about Kendall Fuller? What the heck happened to Kendall Fuller? Why are we just spending another 3rd-round draft pick on Moreau when we have Fuller, and Fuller is I think we established that Fuller is in the slot corner last year.
Right.
And so is Moreau a slot guy? I mean, are we going to re-sign Breeland? Is everybody just assuming
6 foot
Breeland
206,
is out?
I'd say Moreau is probably not a slot guy.
Although he has got a lot of speed. He's got more speed than any of the rest of those guys.
So maybe you have him ready to... Oh, sorry, there's a loud motorcycle that just went by. I'm sure that came through. But anyway, I think that Moreau could be that guy who covers the speedy slot players, but you can't put that kind of size on a tight end.
No, you can't. And so I just long term, I don't get it. I mean, are we just assuming Bashaud Breeland is gone? I mean, it seemed like it. I agree with you, Alex. I don't really see the need for a high draft pick on a corner. I think Moreau as a player has a lot of potential. So just looking at that from a best player perspective, from a player perspective, I think he has a lot of potential, assuming he gets over his injury. I just kind of question just generally what they're doing in the defensive backfield. They drafted 4 defensive backs. I don't see how all these guys can possibly play, given who we already have.
Well, some of them are just special teamers. Those guys in the 7th round that we'll talk about briefly, those are special teams picks.
Yeah, I just kind of, it's like we're throwing stuff on the wall and hoping
I agree
some
with
of
you
it
there.
sticks.
I agree.
Yeah, I've really got nothing else to add to that. I completely agree. I felt like this was. I still think it's a good pick and a good athlete. Like you said, I think after this, the draft kind of goes for me a little bit more off the rails for a couple reasons. I don't hate this pick. I just don't love it. And you're right. It just seems like we focus a shit ton of time and effort on the defensive backfield when we don't really need to. There are other places that could use the attention. So I don't absolutely hate this pick, but I definitely don't love it either. There's other places we could have gone.
I would have rather like John Johnson, who went a couple picks later to the Rams, who's a safety. I mean, if you're going to go defensive back, I think safety is a bigger need for us than corner still.
Well, it's really free safety that's a need, and we'll get to this later, but I'm not sure the guys we brought in really fill the free safety role.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But we'll get to that. The only other thing about Moreau before we move on is just an interesting point. He actually came to UCLA as a running back, and he transitioned to corner as a freshman, so he doesn't really have a ton of experience as a corner. He's only played it. He's only done it that in college, so just bear that in mind.
Yeah.
I might have gone running back at this point.
Was a second defensive lineman. That's the last thing I'll say.
Yeah, you might have gone running back, Sean.
I mean, over a corner at this point.
Yeah,
if I was trying to just
the guy
pick
from
based off
Toledo
of
was
positions,
still available.
probably.
He's a good running back too.
We brought him up in our preview.
There's a couple of them.
Yeah.
Speaking of running back.
All right, well then, I was going to say, if you guys are ready, let's move on to then the 4th round picks, plural, that we had going on here. So somebody help me out with the pronunciation of this guy. Is it Samaj? Samaj?
I think Samaj. I think the E is silent.
Well, let's go with Samaj, and if we
better.
if we butcher your name, we apologize. Samaj Perrin. We'll have to get him on the show and ask him how to pronounce his name one of these days. That ought to go well.
Right.
He is from the University of Oklahoma. He split carries with the aforementioned and troubled Joe Mixon. He is 5'10", 235 pounds, roughly shaped like a bowling ball. He's from Jackson, Alabama. He had really good numbers in college, played 36 games over 3 years, 685 carries, 4,122 yards, averaged 6.0 yards per attempt, which is kind of right in the ballpark for elite college running backs. He was a little bit of a factor in the passing game in college, had 40 catches, 321 yards. I don't think he's anywhere near Joe Mixon or Dalvin Cook in that regard, but he did have that. So that is kind of the profile of Samaj Perrin. My question right off the bat I'd pose to you guys, I want to know how he fits into a Jay Gruden offense. This guy is a downhill runner. He's not going to juke anybody. He's going to run over you. He struck me immediately when I saw him as a guy who needs to be running out of the power formation out of the eye, and I don't know how Jay's going to work that in.
Well, I'll put it to you
He's going to get the goal line carries.
I will give you a very simple answer. Look at every running back we have other than Chris Thompson, and they all have that same kind of build. They're all these short, fat, stocky power running backs. I mean, that's what this team seems to love, but doesn't utilize quite how it's conventionally utilized.
How many game wrap-ups did we do last year where the post-game quote from Jay is, we're going to start using our running game?
Right.
He's been it seems like every week since he got hired here, he's talking about using the running game more in more of a traditional power sense, and he never does it. And far be it from me to criticize
they don't
him.
want to use a fullback, and that's on Jay. That's on our offensive line coach, who really is kind of the brainchild for the running schemes. These guys don't want to use a fullback, and if you're going to have a bunch of 230-pound running backs, you really want a fullback to take that first, tackler on.
Yeah, so I have a hard time. I think Perrin as a running back was a pretty good fourth-round choice. I think he was very productive in college. I think as Steve Shoop from Fanspeak told us a couple weeks ago, there's the question about playing in the Big 12 because the defenses are lax, and so you have to factor that in there. But my question really is less the pick and more how do you fit a guy like that into the Redskins, like we said.
Yeah, I understand. It's a good question. My big thing about the draft when it comes to running backs, that rumor that who was it, Ian Rappaport started, that we were actively trying to shop Matt Jones during the draft.
I mean,
that
doesn't
saw
surprise
that.
me too much.
No. But
I don't know how much you're going to get from him.
Do you think it was real or not? That's my question.
They might have made a phone call.
Also puts out a lot of stuff that's wrong. Let's be honest.
Well, I mean, shopping him around could mean they made a phone call, and that equates to shopping around. I think it's not so much they'd want to trade him. I think they would trade him. The question is really who would trade for him. Who's going to trade more than a very minimal amount for Matt Jones, who's a guy, who's got benched. He has a fumbling problem. Matt Jones has developed in terms of his stats in year 2, but he had pretty good yards per carry, but I mean the fumbling thing, and he got benched, and you're going to trade him. I mean, you get a bag of Doritos for him. The veritable bag of Doritos.
I agree with you there. You're not going to get anything for him, but it's more of a let's move him off the roster and hope it helps our cap space a little bit,
But he's not a big cap hit, really, either. I mean, it's really not about that. I mean, to me, the bigger issue on the running back front is how are all these pieces going to fit together? I mean, we've got Mac Brown, who deserves a shot.
Right.
He did pretty well in his limited opportunities. We've got Keith Marshall coming back from injury from last year. A lot of people were really high on Keith Marshall. He's out there.
I kind of forgot he existed, but I was really excited about him at the time when we drafted him.
Yeah, he didn't really do well in the preseason, but he's a rookie, and so we'll see what happens. And now we're bringing in another guy. So it's one of these times where one of those guys is, when the musical chairs game stops, somebody's not going to have a seat.
A couple guys probably, because we got Brown, we got Thompson.
I don't think all those guys are going to be on. If we keep 4 running backs, we're going to keep the draft pick. We're going to keep Rob Kelly, and so between Matt Jones, Thompson. Sorry. So between Jones, Marshall, and Brown, 2 of them are going to be gone.
Right.
So we'll see. But more importantly, though, I really want to know how. I want to see Jay follow through on his vow to do more downhill running.
I agree with you there. I mean, I love Gruden, but that is his one flaw is he does not. And even when he has the lead, he does not want to run the ball. So, yeah.
So, there you go. Samaj Perrin.
Samaj, hopefully we're getting that right.
All right, well, let's talk about the next guy there, who is Monty Nicholson from Michigan State.
Yep,
Monty Nicholson
wasn't even on my radar, really.
Yeah, this is where the whole thing went off the rails to me. I don't know about you guys, but this guy's not an impressive dude at all from what I've seen of him. Injuries and he can't tackle.
I'm sorry, I have a little technical problem there.
Yeah.
Montaigne Nicholson, he's 6'2", 219 pounds. He's a decent athlete, 35-inch vertical leap, ran a 4.40. He's another injured guy. Has a torn labrum.
Right.
He's supposed to be ready for the start of training camp by his own words. 200 total tackles. He only made 4 interceptions in college, which tells me he's not a ball hawk. He may not be a free safety, maybe more if you're playing a cover 3, more the end of the box safety. So he's got a lot of competition there. So I get it. I think this is a case where, the coaches and the scouts saw something in him, and we just sort of have to trust, that they know what they're doing with that pick.
Scott with 2 T's. Trust Scott with 2 T's.
Trust Scott with Scott Campbell is who Alex is referring to,
and not our friend Scott Campbell, also known as Scamp.
Yeah, no, the Scott Campbell that is employed by the Redskins.
Right.
Scamp may or may not like Montaigne Nicholson. I don't know, but we're talking about Scott Campbell.
No, we got to do something with that though at some point.
Scamp may or may not be employed as well. Period. We're just not sure.
Scamp is self-employed, man. He's pretty well off.
Anyway,
I'm just kidding, Scamp. I know you're not listening though, so I don't know why I'm addressing you.
He might listen. He listens.
Jesus.
The fear with this Nicholson pick is, we've got Swearinger, we've got Cravens. If at some point we'd like to put DJ Swearinger in his more natural position of strong safety, although he can certainly be a free safety, well, now we've got a bunch of guys who are also in the box safeties. We didn't really address we need a rangy, cover guy, and we still don't have that after the draft yesterday, because I don't think Nicholson is it.
Yeah. There was a couple issues that I had with the pick. Again, I just don't see why we went so cornerback heavy when I think, or defensive back, let's say, not just corners. I think we needed more help along the D line still, but
they can't help themselves, Alex. They just can't help themselves.
They think that you can go with 2 defensive linemen every play. I don't understand this.
I guess, yeah. All right. So you want to move on?
Yes.
All right.
Let's run through these last guys, because how much do we really know about them?
Well, you know,
seriously.
The 5th round pick was Jeremy Sprinkle from Arkansas, tight end.
Who was named by a 12-year-old girl because his last name is Sprinkle.
Well, the good news about Jeremy Sprinkle is this is our traditional tight end we've been looking for. He's 6'6", 256 pounds.
Yep.
He's a pretty decent blocker. This is the replacement for Logan Paulson.
Right.
The downside to him, he made a dumb decision last year at the Belks Bowl. You raise your hand if you knew there was a such thing as the Belks Bowl. But what happened was as a part of the swag bag the Arkansas players got was a $450 Belks department store gift card. Instead of using said $450 in Belks department store before the game, he tried to take more than $450 out, and so got cited for shoplifting. So that was a bad decision. It's about as minor as it gets, but it's a naughty mark on it.
Tisk.
Yeah, tisk. So I think, with Sprinkle, you hope for traditional inline tight end. So that's why we drafted him.
All right. So next one I see is Chase Roulier, center, 6'4", 312 pounds, not 212 pounds, like I was about to say. Wyoming. So he's a Bronco. I don't know what Wyoming's actual team name is. I just know they have ugly frickin' uniforms.
They do have ugly uniforms.
Yeah. But I don't really have anything to say other than we needed a backup center. So good for us. We got a backup center.
He's going to compete with Quentin Schooley, who we signed.
Yeah. Quentin Schooley, who, as I tweeted out and people really loved, he looks a lot like Bobby Hill from King of the Hill.
Bobby?
Yeah. Bobby?
Damn it, Bobby. Schooley also, or Roulier also played at guard in some college, so he may have a little bit of versatility.
Yeah. And by the way, I really feel bad for Danny Roulier that it's not spelt the same, because he could have gotten a legit jersey with his name on the back. But
Danny Roulier, he's your friend, so
not really my friend, but yes,
fake friend. In my head, Russell for there. Yes. When you said Roulier, I was like, well, that's different.
I don't know if Chris Russell could fit in a center's jersey.
He might not. So I was about to make a negative. I was about to make a negative joke out of it, and then I realized we were talking about Danny, not Chris Russell. So
yes, that's fine.
Round 6 pick was wide receiver Robert Davis, 6'3", 220 pounds. Ran a 4.4 40, had a 41-inch vertical leap. So he's a heck of an athlete, elite athlete. It needs work on route running. Played at Georgia State, so. There's a lack of competition there, but he is an elite athlete who's a good prospect. So that is Robert Davis. He joins a very crowded and very tall wide receiver group. So I think we need to, I think we need to see how he develops.
All right. So lastly, we had Josh Harvey Clemens, Josh Holsby, One is a safety from Louisville, the other a defensive back from Auburn. I don't really, neither were on my radar at all. Like I said, personally, I really kind of wish they had gone defensive line, at least on one of those picks. I think that would have helped more than just adding a couple of guys who are going to be special teamers at most.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Josh Harvey-Clemens, what sticks out with him is two things. Number one, he's 6'4", which is really, really tall for a safety. That's about as tall as you're ever going to see for a safety. He's 217 pounds. So you have to wonder whether the team is going to experiment with him at linebacker, potentially, to see if he fits there,
right,
just because of his size. And the other thing is he failed several drug tests in college, and that's probably the reason why he fell to the 7th round. I think people thought the draft nicks, the Mayoks of the world, thought he had better talent at times, but he was a little inconsistent. So that is Josh Harvey-Clemens. Now the thing about Josh Halsey from Auburn is that he tore his ACL twice in college. So he was there 5 years, only played 27 games. So he may be one of these guys that will develop into a better talent than you think, given the fact that he was a back of the draft guy.
Sure.
Depending on how his knee is. So I tend to be a little bit more hopeful over Halsey for that reason. I think, given the fact that we have so many DBs, I mean, they both have a ways to go. Tell you want to just give our general thoughts on the draft as we wrap it up real fast? I mean, I think I wish we would have drafted another defensive lineman and found a guard in lieu of some of these defensive backs. So I love the top of the draft. I wish they had done that to fill a couple of those needs. So that was kind of my overall conclusion.
I would say I more or less agree with you on that, Steve. I would say I think the first 3-4 picks, I think were top-notch. Let's say first 3 picks were top-notch. The next 2 were kind of average, and after that I thought it was kind of poor. Not terrible guys, just not – the picks didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I think the top part of the draft, though, was excellent, and that's what's most important.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like we're smarter than the guys in the room because, who knows what that day 3 is going to really turn out. None of us had Alfred Morris on our radar in 2012, for example.
No, that's true.
But somebody saw something out of him, and he was productive for a couple of years.
And we're glad they're Redskins. I mean, we're not peeing all over them. It's just that I was a little surprised, I think, as you guys are, that we went so heavy defensive back.
I mean, one of the things I always look for in a draft is, did you address, broadly speaking, every different aspect of a football team each draft? And by that I mean you don't take a quarterback every draft, but somebody in the backfield. Did you get a receiver in every draft? Did you get at least one offensive lineman? Did you get at least one defensive lineman? And we did that. So, I can't knock this draft too hard.
We didn't get an offensive lineman.
We got a center.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you're right. I'm thinking guard. I mean, the need really to me was guard, and we did.
I think we're talking about.
But you're right. I forgot about the center. Yeah,
we talked about this before the draft, that this wasn't a replacement starter kind of offensive lineman draft. So that's it. That's my thought.
All right.
Yeah, I agree. I got nothing to add there. Let's talk about our next story here, which is pretty exciting. Alex, you wanna take us through what you've been up to these last few days?
Well, I've been busy. My wife's been out of town, and that's not what you want to talk about, though, is it?
No. Tell us about yesterday in particular. Saturday, the FedEx draft party. Alex, you have some insight.
Oh, that. Yeah. Okay, so Steve somehow finagled us into the FedEx draft party media room.
Because I am cash.
We were able to sit.
Because I'm great and I'm awesome.
This is why we keep Steve around, is he's very good at dealing with the press. Or PR people, not the press. The press, too. But anyway, he got us into the press conference for Jonathan Allen and Ryan Anderson, which was pretty kind of awesome for us. And me being the one guy who lives only 5 miles away from the stadium, I'm the one who ended up going. So I'll say this. This is my first time ever doing a media press-related thing for the Redskins. I had no idea where I was going, other than, go to FedEx Field. And for the first 20 minutes, I was in the wrong room, which is kind of funny.
They sent you to the wrong room, though, right?
They said, go down the hall, take a left, and go in the room that's marked interview room. Turns out there are multiple halls and multiple rooms marked interview room on the left side of the halls. I was in what is normally the post-game room for the visiting team. So that's where I was like waiting. And I'm like, this is just like an empty storage room with a bunch of abandoned tables.
We'd like to point out that you weren't the only one there, though, right?
No. Master Tesfassian popped by, and he's like, hey, I don't think this is right. I said, I don't think it's right either. And so he wandered out, and, he knows people, so I guess he talked to somebody who found out the right room. Nonetheless, I got into the right press conference room well before Jonathan Allen and Ryan Anderson spoke. And I got to sit in their, introductory to the Redskins media press conference, which was really cool. I'll say this. Both guys are, I'm going to say they're quiet-ish guys. You don't get that, loud, showboaty vibe from either of them. They both kind of give off that they're very professional, even at their age, and they're kind of the strong, silent kind of players. I got a great vibe off both of them. I think they've been doing this for a while. But let me go into a couple clips here from their press conferences. I was able to, use my phone's MP3 recorder to record at least a few sound bites. Now, it's cool. These guys both played together. They're both from Bama. We've talked about that. So they know each other really well. And one of the questions asked was just for them to go into talking about the other player rather than talking about themselves. Describe the other guy as a player. So let's hear that first.
John's a great teammate, He's a guy, he come in the locker room, he can change the mood of a lot of guys. He got better goodwill, he can joke around, but when it's time to get serious, we get on the field, he all about his business. Smart player. He's a great player, so that's pretty much it.
That's good. Thanks.
For me, I say Ryan's very versatile player. Dominant on the run, aggressive, physical, nasty. For me, those are things I'm kind of looking for.
Oh, just kill him.
To say that?
I'm looking for a linebacker. As far as a teammate, probably one of the best I've had, just like from a work ethic standpoint. You're not really too many times you can catch Ryan slacking off. He's really bringing guys to his level. So, as a teammate and a person, you can't really ask for too much better.
I'm glad you asked that question. You would have never said that stuff about me.
Okay, and so now the other big thing, big story about these two guys is that Allen obviously is a local boy. His family lives here in Ashburn, or Leesburg, right outside of Ashburn. And so he was asked just what playing for the hometown team means to his family. So let's hear what his response was to that.
So playing for the Redskins means a lot. I still remember the days when I would come up to a Redskins facility when we first got down to McNabb, and I was out there for training camp and watching them. So it is cool to be able to say I can play for the Redskins. But, that was then and this and now. This is my job and this is my business. And it's so exciting and fun. But I'm just ready to get to work.
So that, that kind of is the two little sound bites we wanted to play. I'm sorry the audio's not better. They wouldn't let me hook up my recorder to anything that would actually pick up the mics. So, I just had to go with the room audio. Best I could do. It's fine. We'll work with it, obviously. I'm just happy they let us in the room. Overall, it was a cool experience, and, one hopefully we'll get to have more of.
I'd like to point out one more thing. The question you asked, Alex, I thought was a good one. You asked Jonathan Allen whether he had a preference on where he plays on the defensive line, because we saw him at Alabama line up all over the place, and predictably he didn't say much. Predictably he said he'd basically, play where the coaches put him. I was hoping maybe he would come back and say, yeah, I'm more of a 5-tech, but he didn't.
Sure. Frankly, even though I don't think a 5-tech's necessarily what we need,
Maybe not.
I think he is kind of more of an end personally. What I'm one of those people who says we desperately need a nose tackle. That's still kind of going to be our Achilles heel on defense. Yeah. But Allen is, like I said before, these guys have played for Nick Saban. They're treating themselves like pros who are in their fifth year, not guys who are, new to this. Like his answer was what you would expect from a veteran, where I don't care where I play as long as I play. That was kind of his response when I asked him that question. Anderson was asked a similar question about going inside versus playing outside, because obviously a lot of people say we need another inside linebacker, even with the signings we've made. And
not a lot of people. We have said on this show, among others. Yeah.
So, Anderson was asked something similar, and, similar response. These guys haven't gotten a chance to really be on the field yet or to talk with the coaches much more than a, hey, how's it going? Welcome to the team kind of thing. It's not like they've gotten into the playbook yet. So I'm sure that kind of stuff will be picked up by them. As I said before, it is a kind of cool thing that we got a local guy. Allen said apparently he kind of grew up with Chris Cooley as a mentor, which I didn't know until that press conference.
Let's hope that Chris Cooley educates Mr. Allen on the proper use of social media photographs better than Cooley himself used it as.
Yeah.
If people remember the reference to what I'm talking about,
yes.
Some of you may thought Chris several years ago tried to put out a picture on his website of his playbook, and he got his playbook in a part of his body that he did not intend to be in the photo.
Part of his anatomy that you don't put up on the internet unless you're getting paid a special amount of money.
So let's hope he educates Mr. Allen on not doing something dumb like that.
I don't think Allen's going to do anything dumb like that. Allen comes across more as a, polished, clean-cut, less bohemian type than Chris Cooley was. And I love Cooley, don't get me wrong. But
I love Cooley too.
Yeah.
Well, and we're going to have a bunch of we took a bunch of cool pictures of the day.
Yeah,
so
I took some
one way or another, we will get them on the website for you guys to see. I would like to, thanks to Redskins PR for credentialing us for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a very cool thing.
Right. Yeah, it was interesting to go to. I've never actually been there for the draft day party. It's kind of, as a fan, it is very fun to just be wandering around on the actual field. Even though it's not like you're running routes or anything, it's covered in moon bounces and nonsense. But, being out there on the field where the guys are actually playing is something that, it's kind of unique.
And more importantly, I'm glad that you were not standing in an extra room while the actual press conference was going on. You texted me that at one point, Alex, and I was somewhat nervous that you were going to be stuck in that room and the thing was that would be just very, very, that'd be very ironic.
No. I was in that room and I could hear, you can tell this is the room where it's connected to the guests' visiting locker room through one door, and then the cheerleaders' locker room through the other door, because I could hear a lot of giggling through that door.
Hey now.
Yeah.
Hey now. See, that's the photograph you should have gotten.
Tried to break open that door?
No, let's not do that, because we want to come back again. So
I don't
probably
want
not a wise idea. And you'd rather not be arrested either, so.
I wouldn't be the first member of my family to get arrested.
Anyway, so that was the FedEx Day draft party. Special thanks again to the Redskins for helping us out with that.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Thank you very much.
Well, do we have anything else to cover?
No, that was the draft 2017. We've I think beaten the draft to death over the past several weeks, and I'm actually kind of glad it's over with. And we will transition over the next few weeks into doing our traditional position group breakdowns and start to educate you about the roster and so forth as we prepare for training camp in July.
Oh, it's in July? So we have.
It is in July.
What the hell are we going to do for the next few weeks?
That's the last slog.
We will do position group breakdowns. I just said it. We will do position group breakdowns.
All right, I'm gonna take a nap till July, you guys. I'll see you.
Well, hopefully, maybe a player will get in trouble, or something fun like that will happen.
Yeah, can somebody set something on fire at Redskins Park?
We already had a fire at Redskins Park. It was just a fire in the front office.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe we'll have another.
That's what the big
fire.
topic will be. Who's the next GM?
Oh, by the way,
go.
we neglected to mention this. The Redskins re-signed Morgan Moses to a 5-year contract this week.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have a salary cap update for you guys, so that's why I haven't done it, because the details of his contract are not available yet.
Mm-hmm.
But the rumor
that he's the second highest paid tackle
and
now.
if you kind of read between the tea leaves, we're thinking 5 years, $50 million probably. But we'll see the exact details. But congratulations to Morgan Moses. That is an example of a draft pick that worked out. He was a third-round pick. He was terrible, I thought, his first year as a rookie. And he developed into an outstanding right tackle. And now we're set along the offensive line with the exception of left guard for the next many years. And so that's a good thing. So congratulations to Morgan Moses.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we will see you guys at home next week. Take care.